So I think most of us already have a grasp on this notion that happiness comes from within ourselves and pleasure comes from seeking externally.
Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without.
Great, great, great. So why do we still struggle with this? And actually, it's completely understandable because really it comes down to temptation. So the first point I want to make here is that pleasure and happiness are two sides of the same coin. We are constantly confronted with temptation. This doesn't just come down to, checking the phone or eating desserts and this sort of thing. It also comes down to where it all originates in the thoughts, in our thinking. When our mind is going on and on and on, when a narrative presents itself, when this anger and envy and all of these narratives that feed all of those egos present themselves to the mind, that's temptation. So pleasure comes from, oh, I feel angry. I'm going to gratify these angry thoughts or these lustful thoughts or these actions. This is why our thoughts really construct our world, because we have the will to either give into the pleasure of thinking and going into all of these egoic narratives, or we have the willpower to also be happy by sacrificing this bittersweet short-term taste. It's a short-term versus long-term type of thing. That's really all it is, which is why the second point I want to make here is we want to build castles, not sandcastles. Sandcastles are fleeting and they go away. So when we have identifications with external things, but if we can triumph over temptation, that is how we can build our castle.
Heaven on earth is a choice you must make, not a place you must find.
Now we have to remember that gratification is very deceptive. And if we want to avoid building sandcastles by gratifying pleasure, we need to be triumphant over this gratification so that we can build the castle and build our happiness. This means that we have to be constantly vigilant of where these gratifying urges are coming from. So the third point that I have here is branches versus roots. So we might think we have a grasp on our desires, the desires that want us to leave happiness for pleasure. We might think we know these things like, oh, that was me being prideful. That was why I tried to get that compliment. It's because I had pride. And this is good, but it actually goes a lot deeper. So this might be a branch, but it's rooted with other things. So there's a common thread. There are other patterns at play here. And oftentimes the same feeling of gratification that we get from pride can actually be the same feeling of gratification that we get from lust or greed or something. So for example, with me, I spent a lot of my life doing YouTube, and there's this gratification I get when I check my YouTube notifications, when I check, I just, oh, did I get the views? Did I get the person to comment or give me likes and stuff? There's this gratification where I don't feel complete and I seek this out to feel a sense of pleasure. And also in my life, I have this attachment to chips. I freaking just have pounded chips many times. I had this dream, okay? And basically, there were all these different parts to it, but this guy, I saw these guys making videos, and they had a really big head. The heads were huge, and this camera was showing this, and it panned horizontally, and as it showed like on the couch these three guys making videos with huge heads, then it also showed a bag of chips, and the camera was moving horizontally. And at first I was like, what does this is all crazy. But as I processed this, I realized, they say like, don't let it go to your head. Don't let all of this pride go to your head. And so there was some sort of gratification of me like trying to enjoy the pride. And then with the chips, it was the same gratification of feeding this pride was the same gratification that I got from gluttonous consumption of potato chips. And that's why this camera horizontally panned from the big heads to the chips to symbolize that it's me feeding the same roots, the same urges of these desires to be greedy. And the camera was moving horizontally, which also demonstrates the horizontal material world. The vertical world is the internal spiritual process of building the connection to our inner divinity. So it's also very telling that the camera was moving clearly horizontally in this dream. So, things on the surface actually go much deeper most of the time than we might actually realize. We need to really be on the lookout for these roots to see how we're building sandcastles instead of our castle, which is why the fourth point that I have here is empty cup. If our cup is full, if we think we know things and our cup has this water in it, then we can't put in the water of wisdom because the cup is already full and it will start overflowing. So even if we really think we know, even if we're tempted to really, I know this about myself, I know this is just water in the cup, and we want to keep it empty so that we can totally allow the water of wisdom to fill it up without trying to put in our own water that is totally misplaced. So that's the message of this video: pleasure versus happiness. And to build our castle, we need real honesty with ourselves. And we have to understand that beneath the iceberg, really there are depths to that we have to be honest in order to look at. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you for watching. Peace out.